My name is Monk Rowe, and we're having a second session with Ignacio. Welcome.
How you doing, Monk?
You're doing well. Uh, we had some issues the first time around, and I lost some of your best moments. So you're just going to have to be great again.
Well, I'll do my best. I'll
All
do
right.
my best.
I wanted to just follow up on your early life, and you had said your father was a fan of Castro and fought in the Bay of Pigs and embraced the political situation at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, like million of Cubans, they embraced the Cuban Revolution. I'm coming from a poor family, so rightfully so, my father was ostracized because all the promises that Castro made to the poor Cuban people, talking about equality, inclusion, so forth and so on. So anyway, yes, he did. He fought on Bay of Pigs, and then around 1965, he went the opposite way. So he abandoned Castro's revolution.
What specifically did he get disenchanted with?
At some point, I was a kid, but at some point, and then later on, we found that most or almost all Castro's promises were lies, that he was lying. He was lying to the Cuban people. I don't know if he was an egomaniac. I don't know if he did that on purpose. But most of the promise were lies. And I don't want to get too much into politics because I know there are a lot of people here in the United States and in the world who are Castro's fan, and they think that Castro's policy or Castro's revolution was the best that could have happened to the Cuban people. But just a reflection: if Castro's revolution is so great, why so many people abandoned the island in rafts? Why so many Cubans tried to leave the island? Why 125,000 people arrived here to the United States in 1980 if the country is so great? So that's my point of view. And if it's like I'm gonna put you an analogy with people. I always do this analogy when people who compare capitalism, which is not the greatest system in the world either, when they compare capitalism to socialism. So I always say, well, I'm 68 years old, so I have witnessed quite a few Olympic Games. I have never seen any athlete from any of the poorest countries in the world that compete in the Olympic Games when those games has been celebrated in socialist countries like former Soviet Union or Hungary or any place. I have never seen any of those people asking for political asylum in those countries. It has always been the other way around. Athletes from former Soviet Union or the former Eastern European countries asking for political asylum. So in places like the United States or Belgium or France and any capitalist country where the game has been uh, celebrated. So I think that tells you something that if people defect from a system that many people in the world think it is perfect, why do people from those countries defect and the people from the terrible countries like the United States or the poorest countries in Africa or South America, they didn't ask for political asylum and the former Soviet Union. So that's my point. When I see the rafts going from the coast of Florida to Cuba, and I see Americans and people going to Cuba asking for political asylum, then I'm going to say, oh, there is something now very wrong with this system. But up to now, it's the other way around. People in Cuba risk their life to go across the Caribbean and come to the United States and ask for political asylum. So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why, because of the promises that the Cuban government made, in this case, Fidel Castro, who was the government, uh, all the promises that he made that he didn't fulfill, the repressive system that he installed in Cuba, so forth and so on. So people who wants to know more about this, I think they just should get educated and read about former Soviet Union, former European countries, Eastern European countries, and they're going to find a lot of answers.
That's a terrific point, an observation. I wanted to ask you, when you actually were on the boat coming from Cuba to Florida, can you go back and remember your state of mind? What what were you thinking? What were you hoping for?
Well, first of all, I was looking for freedom. In my case in particular, my life in Cuba was unbearable. I never liked the system, just because the reason that I disagree with a system that was against four guys from Liverpool with long hair, tight pants, three guitars, and a drum. I didn't know the message they were conveying at that time because my English, when I arrived to the United States, my English was zero. I have no clue about English language. So I didn't know that what they were saying was all you need is love. I want to hold your hand, and so forth and so on. But the Cuban government was against that music. So Cuban music was against people listening to John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, because they used to say that that was the music that represented the enemy. The enemy were the United States of America. So I was against that because for me, being 13 years old or 13, 14, I didn't understood why if we had a strong revolution that was for supposedly we're going to be free, well, we're going to have a lot of things, and this revolution was so strong, why to be afraid of some musicians, some lyrics, or a genre of music or style of music like jazz? So immediately I went to the other side because my passion for jazz, that's the music that I wanted to play, that's the music I love. So anyway, after that moment, I just wanted to leave the island because I knew my future wasn't in a country where I would not be allowed to express myself musically speaking. Let's put politics aside, musically speaking. So my dream was always coming to the United States because the music that I wanted to play and my heroes were here. I think that in our previous interview, I said that my ultimate dream when I was in Cuba after I became a musician and that I knew that jazz was the music that I wanted to play, my ultimate dreams was watching my heroes one day on a video. I used to pray, if someone come here to John Coltrane, Chick Corea, if I can see that on a video, I'm gonna be one of the happiest men in the world.
Well, you certainly did better than that.
Well, yeah, but thanks God. Yeah, I consider that I'm a lucky man. I'm a lucky man because not everybody comes to the United States and fulfill their dreams. Speaking about music, a lot of people, a lot of musicians from different countries comes to the United States with an idea, with a dream, and not everybody has been able to see their dreams come true.
Hmm.
I'm one of the luckiest one that I have seen my dream come through.
When I was in college, a certain group of us, we would have dreams about getting a call to play with Buddy Rich or Stan Kenton. I dreamt about being a member of Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Wow.
And here you are, you're in the country for about a year. Can you tell me how all of a sudden you appear in a club as Dizzy Gillespie's drummer?
Man, life is full of surprises. I arrived to New York. I got in touch with the Cuban musician Mario Bauza, who was responsible for the Afro-Cuban jazz movement in the 40s. It was Mario who told Dizzy to hire Chano Pozo, so forth and so on, and the rest is history. So I met Mario. Mario became my mentor. It was Mario, the guy who took me to the Union's musicians in New York. He recommended me with different musicians in New York, mainly those who were into the recording industry, like Arturo Chico Farrell, to name one of them. But Mario also recommended me to Dizzy Gillespie, something that he never told me. He never mentioned it to me. I recommend you to Dizzy Gillespie. He said to me, I'm going to recommend you to everyone I know here in New York. So you're going to be doing a lot of recordings because you have the ability of reading, sight reading music, so forth and so on. But he never mentioned it, Dizzy Gillespie. And one night he just called. Well, but by that we became good friends. And one night Mario called me and I answered the phone and he asked me that if I wanted to play with Dizzy Gillespie, which I thought that it was a joke. And he said to me, "No, I'm serious. Dizzy Gillespie needs a drummer for tonight." Dizzy had an engagement at a club in New York called Fat Tuesday. His regular drummer couldn't make the gig because he was in Boston and there was no storm and he wasn't able to make it to New York. So on his desperation, can you imagine all the drummers that Dizzy had on his phone book? So after calling everybody, or I don't know, whatever, and thanks God everybody was busy, he remembered, oh, Mario told me about a Cuban drummer. So he called Mario, and Mario told him, let me see if the guy is available. I was available. And that's how I ended up playing. And this, like 6 months after my arrival to the United States, I was sitting behind Dizzy Gillespie on drums, playing at a club in Manhattan called Fat Tuesday. It was pure luck. I think I will say it is those type of things that when we say you are at the right place at the right time, because I was available. I was at the apartment where I was living. I could have been doing a gig somewhere else, and I would have not played with Dizzy that night. I was available, and I went to play with Dizzy.
How
So
was your
thanks to Mario.
how was your English at that
No, no, no.
particular?
My English was zero. Actually, there is a funny part of the story. When Mario called me and he gave me the address and the instructions, I asked him, "Well, Mario, you're gonna go with me. You're gonna be there, right? Because I don't speak English. So how am I gonna communicate with Dizzy?" And Mario, in a very funny way, but he was serious, he said to me, "No, it is too cold out there. I'm not gonna leave my apartment. So you got it. So that's your problem." And so my dear friend Jerry Gonzalez showed up with a car. We put the drums in the car. We drove down to the place, and Jerry was my translator. So through Jerry, Dizzy was, anyone who had the chance to meet Dizzy knows the kind of human being he was. He was the type of person that always showed respect for everybody. I made everybody feel comfortable around him. So Dizzy told Jerry, "You tell Ignacio not to worry because he doesn't speak English. Chano and I worked for a year or so, and Chano never spoke English, and I never spoke Spanish, but we both spoke music. So tell Ignacio that we're going to talk music, and then he gave me the instruction, very simple instruction. He told Jerry, you tell Ignacio when I go like this, that means 4/4 swing. That when I show him six fingers, that means Afro-Cuban 6/8. If I if I make this signal with my hand, if I close my hand and go like this, that means stop. And that when I point my finger at him, that means drums solo. Let's go. Because by the time I arrived to the club was packed. People were sitting, waiting for the drummer to show up. So no time to ask me which tune do you know, what do you want to play. I was not the guest artist. I was there to solve a problem. So we went to the stage and it was perfect. Why? Because I was familiar with his repertoire. I was familiar with Night in Tunisia. I was familiar with Salt Peanuts. I was familiar with Woody and You. I was familiar with Manteca, with Tintindeo. I didn't know the arrangements, but I knew the tunes. So that really saved my life that night.
You had said something, a comment about when musicians listen to other musicians, they shouldn't just focus on their own instrument. They should listen to the whole band to get a sense of how it interacts. And I guess that must have paid dividends for you in that moment because you were familiar not only with Dizzy, but what his supporting sidemen were doing on those recordings.
Well, that has paid big dividends in my career because I'm the type of drummer that always I do a lot of listening. And I think that, in my opinion, and from my experience, listening to music, it is paramount. So you should listen a lot of music. And when you listen to music, in my case, I never concentrated on what the drummer were doing. I was constant. I listened to everything. And when I mean listening is not listening to an album just once. Because I got students that I tell them you have to check Matt Roach, you should check Philly Joe Jones, you should check Art Blakey, and those masters that came before us, Elvin Jones, Jimmy Cobb, Billy Higgins, and they just come to me, oh yeah, yes, I had one album with Billy Higgins with Joe Henderson. Oh, just one album. So listening to a lot of music pays huge dividends, and still I'm 68 and I'm still listening to music. But you should focus if you want to be, let's say, a good drummer, an all-around drummer, or a musician. You should listen and get the whole picture, know what everybody's doing. If you can have the chance of studying the piano and learning some harmony, that also is going to help. Something that I didn't. When I was a kid, I was into just playing or fooling around with my sticks, playing some rudiments, and playing baseball. I didn't pay attention to my father who told me you should study the piano, you should learn harmony. I was just into drums because I didn't have a drum set because I was a classical music student and I wanted to play drums. So anyway, I advise to students if you got good ears and when you listen to music, you listen to the music as a whole, and you just don't concentrate on the lick that Matt is doing. How am I going to copy this Philly Joe? How am I going to copy this Brian Blade? You're going to be a better drummer. I have a philosophy. I always tell people there are two types of drummers, in my opinion. Those drummers who plays the drums, and those who plays music. It's up to you. You have to decide which one you want to become. If you want to be those drummers that have a lot of incredible command of the instrument and can play all the rudiments and have a lot of chops and just concentrate on playing their instrument, or if you want to be a type of drummer who's going to play musically speaking and is going to support the band and make music. It is up to you.
I'm going to come back to that because makes me think of the straight ahead from Havana that you sent. I wanted to ask if some band leaders, I think most famously Count Basie, was known for not saying much to his musicians unless they really were behaving badly or playing badly. And I wonder if Dizzy spoke to you about what he wanted.
Oh, yes, he did. Dizzy was the type. Dizzy, my dear friend, my father, my brother, Dizzy Gillespie, was famous in the business for being a pain in the neck for drummers. He was hard on drummers. So, but Dizzy, aside of teaching me a lot about the bebop vocabulary, which I really appreciate because he just not taught me about what he wanted me to play in his band. He taught me it was a daily lesson about bebop vocabulary, about jazz, about life. Yeah, he taught me, Ignacio, for example, when you arrive to this band, he will handle you a huge, a 22-inch China cymbal that you had to play behind him because that was the sound he wanted to hear, because the explanation was that the frequency of that cymbal didn't interfere with the trumpet frequency. So that was his thing. And when you play big band, a lot of great big band drummers, being Mel Lewis, one of them, they use that China cymbal for that low frequency on the cymbal. So anyway, Dizzy will handle you that cymbal and he will ask you, behind me, please play this cymbal. And also, he was very, can't find the word now, he also was very demanding on playing ding, ding, get in, ding, get in, ding, get in, ding, get in, ding, get in behind him. He used to say to me, when Sam Rivers solo or whomever was playing the sax or the guitar player Ed Cherry solo, I don't care. You go to the symbol of your choice, and you move the beat around as you please. Behind me, please do this. So yeah, Dizzy was demanding. He was demanding about the chords that he wanted to hear, what he thought it was the best chord for the tune, the best chord progression. Yeah, he used to demand. As a matter of fact, Monk, I remember in the 80s, most of the band leaders were very demanding. And there were other musicians, like you mentioned Count Basie. I heard Sonny Rollins never said anything to musicians. I remember I played with Monty Alexander, and Monty told me, I said, Monty, anything in particular that you wanted to hear? And he said, no, man. I let musicians to play whatever they want. Which is, in a sense, it is good and it is bad, because Sonny Rollins would not tell you anything, but if at some point he was hearing something he didn't like, he will hire somebody else.
Yeah, you don't know, like, what did I do?
But that was his philosophy, okay? If this guy match with me, if he plays what I'm hearing, he's gonna be in. If he doesn't play what I'm hearing, that means that we don't match, and I'm gonna continue looking for the perfect match. But all the musicians, they demand, man, if I'm singing, please use this cymbal, because it was not because I wanted, because the frequency, my voice range, I want you to play soft here, so forth and so on. It was a music lesson, you were at a conservatory or at a jazz university and you learn. On the contrary, nowadays I see musicians getting on the bandstand and everybody plays. It is a displacement of musical abilities. Oh, I'm going to show you how can I do this and how I can. In most cases, I don't see any. I don't. It is hard to see a band that plays as a unit, as a team. Everybody's a star. Everybody play for themselves.
Hmm.
That's my appreciation. I don't want people to think that what I'm saying is the rule. From my perspective, what I have been seeing, this is what I have is it is has been happening from a while back,
Okay.
from for a while.
Was was Dizzy a guy who could be aggravated to the point of anger about anything? Did you ever witness him getting really angry?
Oh yeah. But nothing to do with music.
That was sort of my inquiry, like off the bandstand, what got to Dizzy?
No, he was. You didn't want to get in trouble with Daisy. You don't want to run into trouble with Daisy. Just one joke, one story. We were 1981, I think. We were on a taxi cab in Holland, Amsterdam, because that was my first trip with him. Since we, the people that came from Cuba in 1980 through the Mariel boat lift, we didn't have a status in the country. The Ronald Reagan administration gave us a status that were limbo, no residency, no nothing. We were on limbo. So anyway, DC was able to get a permit for me to go outside. He had, since he was the U.S. ambassador of jazz. He called the White House and they authorized me to travel abroad, come back. So anyway, to make long story short, I had to get a visa almost every day because we were doing mostly one-nighters. Tonight in Holland, tomorrow in the UK, then we would go to Belgium, France, so forth and so on. And one day we were going to get a visa in Amsterdam, and DC was talking to me about music, as it always was, rhythm. And then he was banging his pen on the back of the chauffeur seat, on the back of the seat, and the driver at some point got pissed off, and DC wasn't doing it on purpose, DC. That's why they call him DC. And then the guy said something nasty, and it was not right, and DC went off. The guy stopped the car, and DC, we got off the car, and DC went, he got nasty. That was the only time I saw DC totally lost it. He lost it, and yeah, he could get angry. But not in the bandstand. He made, you can get a look from him. It's something if you made a mistake that it was like an obvious mistake or something, you may get a look. But then at the end, he will say to you, "Hey man, yeah, you did this and blah 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 blah." He will take you back to school. That's the only time I saw Dizzy. Actually, I saw him twice. Same thing. Somebody being disrespectful to him and pushing him to the limits. Yeah, there is a famous story with Cat Calloway.
Oh, right, with
There's a famous story with Cat Calloway. So, yeah.
Was he the type of the guy, would he talk about, quote, the old days, his days with Charlie Parker? Or did he reminisce about his early career?
Not much. Not with me. I remember I asking about Charlie Parker, and all I remember he said was that when he met Charlie Parker, Charlie was playing that way. So because I said, hey, Dizzy, do you guys work on that? And he said, no, when we met, I was playing that way. And when he came from Kansas City, he was playing his way. He always talked about how great musician Charlie Parker was. Never said anything negative about Charlie Parker. And saw him many times. People, you know, coming to him and asking him about if Charlie has any drugs problems. He never liked to talk about that. And even I remember Dizzy gave him the answer that I never saw him doing drugs.
Okay.
So that was Dizzy. Never saw, but he didn't talk about. He told stories about about the past. When they used to play at the Three Juices in New York, when they used to play there, how they were ripped off, how the people took advantage of them, meaning business wise, that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But in regard to Charlie Parker, he didn't talk. He always said that Charlie Parker was one of the greatest musicians he ever met.
Okay.
I had the chance to play with.
The term genius, I think, gets overused. Do you consider Dizzy and Charlie Parker to be geniuses?
I think I'm not at the musical level to give an opinion about that because I don't think maybe they were genius in a sense. I don't think if I compare Dizzy Gillespie to Mozart.
To who?
To Mozart,
Yeah.
the European composer. Sorry, my accent.
That's okay.
I don't know. I may say to me, Dizzy was not a genius. Maybe Mozart was a genius.
Okay.
Charlie Parker, maybe he was a genius. But once again, I don't think I'm at the level to describe or to say, oh yes, Dizzy Gillespie was a genius. There is one thing that you said, yes. I think people use that word because I have seen people calling geniuses to people I don't think they are. But that's something that it has been in vogue for a while. Oh, this genius. Oh, he's a genius. Oh, he's a genius. No, I don't think he's a genius. He's a good musician that has a great talent, and he practiced a lot and he dedicated a lot of time to hone his craft.
Right.
So if you want to call that a genius, that's a genius. Here in the United States, I'm saying the United States, I'm not picking in the United States. This is my country, and I love this country because this country received me in 1980 with open arms. So, but I feel that I'm an American. I live here. In this country, and especially in the music business, there is a tendency of label everything. This guy is this, you are a jazz drummer, you are a jazz trumpeter, you are a fusion trumpeter or a fusion drummer, blah, blah, blah. And maybe lately, that's the way people call good musicians, geniuses.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I actually had a question for you, and you are, in a large sense, a percussionist who came from Cuba. Has that resulted in people making assumptions about you? For instance, oh yeah, Ignacio, does he play the timbales or the congas or the bongos?
Yeah, it has been that way, especially with the people in the industry. My peers, my colleagues, those that knows me from the days from the Dizzy Gillespie's days, those who have followed my career, those who know my albums, my 3 albums, those who have seen me playing in jam sessions, they know and I consider myself a straight ahead jazz player. But what happens? It has nothing to do with being American, being Cuban, being from Senegal, Senegalese, or from Peru. It is human nature. And here in the United States, and maybe it happens in other countries, if you are a foreigner, and especially in my case, if you are Cuban, everybody, when they think about Cuba, they think about conga drums. Conga drums, timbales. I'm a Latino. I'm a Latino. So because I'm a Latino, they box me into that category. I'm a Latino. Oh, Ignacio, man. Yeah, even if they're gonna say that I'm a good that I can play straight ahead jazz, they say, oh, Ignacio, yeah, man, he can play straight ahead jazz. But that Afro-Cuban thing he plays, man, that it is something that I don't think they do it on purpose. It's the stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Cuban, and for that reason, in my opinion, I haven't been able to work much with my own project because for promoters, for people in the industry, and I understand that they want to put seats. They want to fill those seats. And the best way to do that is announcing Ignacio Berroa, his Afro-Cuban project, and the Cuban conguero, Ignacio Berroa, a Cuban timbal player. That's the stereotype. Unfortunately, once again, a lot of my peers or my colleagues, I feel happy I have gained the respect, and they respect me for what I have done, meaning coming to this country and being able to absorb the vocabulary and play their music, let's put it this way, at the highest level possible. For those who call the shots, in many cases, and weren't able to do anything, they box me in. I'm a Latino. And Ignacio, oh yes, Ignacio wants to play straight ahead. Who wants to see a Cuban guy play straight ahead? Come on, the type of thing.
Yeah.
I have lived through that.
Okay.
I have been here for 41 years, and that's the way it has been in my case. Why? Once again, people expect me to play conga drums, timbales, cowbell. They want to see Desi Arnaz.
Right. Well, you've been able to get out of the box on the projects you've done, and the one you sent me, Straight Ahead from Havana. When I listen to it, I'm fascinated by the compositions for one thing, and how interactive the whole trio is with all the accents and the it's complex, and you're right there with all of that. You're very active on this record, and I'm not sure if I have a question here, except that I admire it, and it's wonderful music.
Thank you very much, Funk. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. My intention with that album was just to do something different. And the reason why is Straight Ahead. That's the music of my passion, straight ahead jazz. So I wanted to do Straight Ahead jazz album, but I didn't want to play the tunes that most of jazz players play on a regular basis, the standards.
Yes.
So what I did is I took 10 Cuban tunes from a Cuban era that was called the golden era of Cuban music. The golden era of Cuban music. And I took 10 old Cuban tunes and gave to them the straight ahead jazz treatment. And also on the album, I think there are like 2 tunes that we play what people call Latin jazz. But the approach it is Latin jazz, but it's not the regular Latin jazz that most people know. It's not like a Latin jazz a la Mongo Santa Maria or Ray Barreto or Tito Puente. It is Latin jazz from the way I see it, from the straight ahead approach. It's using Afro-Cuban rhythms, but approaching them from the straight ahead approach. I don't know if I'm making explain myself from the straight ahead vocabulary, playing straight ahead jazz, but using Afro-Cuban rhythms.
It seems
Because
like
in my opinion, I can connect them very well.
it seems like balancing those two things you described has to take into account swinging eighth notes, dang ding a dang ding a dang ding a dang, with balancing that with the Afro-Cuban rhythms that you mentioned. Is that a fair statement?
Say that again, like it's
Well,
what?
when I think of straight ahead, I think of swing.
Swing, yeah, you
Yes,
swing,
and
you swing the note.
yeah, the swinging the notes, the uneven, the ching ching ka ching ching, uneven eighth notes. So balancing that with Afro-Cuban rhythms is, I guess, what you bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's something that I explain when I go to colleges and universities. The difference of the articulation, because when you play swing, you swing the notes. Purubiru, dudubiru, dudubiru, dudubi, dudubiru, ba, dubiru, ba, biru, dudubi, right?
Yeah,
Now we play the same tune, Latin, like everybody call it Latin, and I don't like that Latin. It's Cuban rhythms. Now you call that, you play that straight. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Po po di di ba da di di do do di di do bo bi di do bi do ba. Po bi do bi do bi di do bi di do bi di do bi di ba. Ba da do ba do ba da da bi di. The articulation should be different. Should be different, and that's what differentiates. But also, what I have been doing, that's something that occurs to me. I think I like to mix. Okay, you swing, and I'm gonna play straight eight, and let's see what happens. Let's see where we can go. How far can we go? But yeah, it is very simple. You swing, dang, dang, get in, dang, get in, dang, get in. And when you play a Cuban rhythm called cha-cha-cha, you go ping, po, ping, ping, po, ping, pipi, 1, 2, 3, 4, ping, po, ping, papa. When people, I used to tell my American colleagues, the minute that you start playing Latin music, and you start swinging your right cymbal, or you play swinging beats with your bass drums, the flavor goes away. The flavor goes away. It's like when you see someone who's trying to swing and it doesn't swing. You see somebody trying to do ching 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 ching, and what you hear is ting stiff. It doesn't swing. So the same way, the same thing happens the other way around, and that's something that we have to. It's something like yeah. I think, in my opinion, that is a gift that you bring. Like what we said, we musicians say. Either you haven't or you don't. That's it. Oh, he doesn't have it. Okay.
yeah,
But if you have it, if you have that, you have to learn. It's not like you're gonna see Monk playing this rhythm and you're gonna videotape and you're gonna go home. Oh, I can play. No, you're playing a pattern, but you're not playing the music. You're not playing the way it should be played. You don't know about that. You have to learn. You have to absorb that. You know what I mean?
yeah. So what if you're on a gig and you have it, but the bass player doesn't have it?
Well, what I do as a professional, as a musician, that's a good point. Sometimes people that play either straight ahead or Afro-Cuban music in this case, and one of the musicians, the bass player doesn't have it, immediately they get mad. They gave a face to the guy, and that becomes a conflict. What I do as a professional, when I go to play with someone that doesn't have it, I make the best that I can to make him look good. So I don't fight him. I join him. That's me, Ignacio Berroa, as a human being and as a professional. Because that person is not doing that on purpose. He's not doing that to bother me or to destroy the gig. He's doing the best he can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be on his side. Let's be less humble. I'm gonna come down to his level. I'm gonna come down to his level because what I need, what I always like to save, and the most important thing for me is the music. That's the only one that I try that she cannot suffer, the music. I can take my ego and throw it off the window of the balcony, leave my ego at the code check place. But when I go to the bandstand, I'm gonna do everything possible for the music not to suffer. So that's what I do. I just come down to his level, and then later on I give advice. And man, listen, if you want to continue playing this style of music, I think that you should do this, check that. I give them advice. I give the guy or the band advice. But man, you know how many times I have seen it becomes a dog fight. And it is unpleasant. As simple as that, it's unpleasant. If a guy comes to the stage, to the bandstand, and he doesn't swing the way he's supposed to swing, or he doesn't know this, he's not swinging. I have seen quite a few looks and the vibe and faces. What can I say? Once again, for me, it is human nature.
I think you just said it really well, and you actually lead me into a question. We can wrap up soon, but let's suppose you got to do some hanging. You're having lunch or something with 5 or 6 graduates from Berkeley, and they wouldn't necessarily be drummers, but they're people who are aspiring to a career as jazz musicians. Are there a short list of things that you want them to at least be aware of as musicians, either musically or just the life?
Wow, that's a question. Well, we don't have too much time. The first thing that I will make them aware, and that's something that really concerns me for what I have been seeing lately in the jazz educational world. I have seen a lot of students that they don't have command of their instrument. They are very eager to sound like themselves, get their own style, and they don't know the fundamentals. And I think it is very important. You don't build a building from the 14th floor up. You need a foundation. And I will tell them, make sure your foundation is strong. Your foundation. Make sure people doesn't want, especially young musicians, they want to forget about the past. My friend Dizzy Gillespie always used to say, we need to have a foot in the future, but one in the back. So meaning the back is the foundation, and then we take that foundation and we continue walking and we make the future. I don't know if I'm making myself playing with my English, with my short English, but I will tell the students, man, get a great command of your instrument. Learn how to play your instrument first. In the case of drummer, Learn how to grab the stick, where to hit the drums, where to hit the cymbal. Learn that. Get it. It's not about chops. It's not about playing fast and doing a lot of things in the instrument. That's secondary. So learn that. If you are a trumpet player, learn about your embouchure. Learn that thing, those things, get the command of your instrument. Then do a lot of listening. You have to go and learn about the history. You should learn about the history. You should listen to our predecessors. You should learn where this music came from. I think you should do that. Then life, then you have to learn. That's something that it cannot be teach problem in universities. Life it's gonna teach you. Don't get a big ego. I have seen a lot of young students that when they play three notes, they get immediately a big ego. And I have always put this analogy. We play music to make people enjoy a moment, make them happy, bring some happiness, bring some peace to them. We are not saving life. So we are not as important as a guy, as a surgeon that is sitting at a restaurant. He gets a call, he go to his hospital, and he open me wide and do a heart operation. He's saving my life. And I don't see that people bragging the next day, oh, I saved 3 lives yesterday because I did this 4 heart operations and did this 26 bypasses and I saved 4 people life. Ha! I'm a genius. And then we go to the bandstand, we play 3 courses, and some people scream, and we think that we are God. No, you're not.
You are an absolute delight, Ignacio. I'm telling you.
So that's what would be my advice to students,
Okay.
and then now whomever is gonna see this interview, I'm gonna quote my mentor, my hero, Roy Haynes, and I'm gonna say just a tiny bad word. Roy Haynes always said, "Don't forget that somewhere out there you can meet someone who's going to kick your ass." So that's what I would tell the students. Yeah, man, let's get a great command of our instrument. Let's make the foundation solid so we can build that skyscraper that you want to build. And let's be humble and let's continue learning because this is a never ending learning process. And don't get this to get to your head. Everybody, we all get our 15 minutes of glory, and then that's it. I can say another thing that probably your musician doesn't know. Be nice to people on your way up because you are going to meet them on your way down.
Well, I just have my 50 minutes of glory with you again, and so that's I don't know how many altogether. I'm like in interview heaven.
But we're having fun. But
Yes, indeed.
yeah, that's my philosophy. And believe me, that philosophy has created me. Maybe it hasn't been that good for me because this is who I am. I don't sell myself. I don't know how to sell myself. And sometimes in this business, you need to portray yourself as a very important person, keep distance, and that creates a mystery that people wants to, Ignacio, no, he's an enigma. You don't know. No, I'm straight ahead. And that's the way I am. That's the way I'm going to die. And that's the way I like it. Straight ahead jazz. I'm straight ahead. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to allow nobody to disrespect me. I know who I am,
Hmm.
but I'm straight ahead. I'm a human being. Hey, come on.
All right. Well, this has just been a delight again, and I wish you best of luck with your move, and we'll have to figure out a way to bring you back to the Northeast.
Well, man, it would be my pleasure. I always tell this is the way I sell myself. I have a lot to give. I think I got some knowledge and experience to share. It depends of the people at the different universities and music institutions to take advantage of what I can offer. So a lot of people ask me, "Hey, Ignacio, when you coming to this place? When you coming here?" I say, "Well, the first thing I need is an invitation. If you don't invite me to your house, I won't knock on your door. Hey, man, here I am,
Right.
and I'm gonna be after you. Hey, can you invite me to your house? Can you invite me to your house?" That sounds like begging. So here I am. I'm here. I'm here. So
Right.
it would be, I'd be delighted of going anywhere where people think that my knowledge and my experience is gonna serve a purpose for the institution, for the students, for people in general.
Right. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you on the flip side.
Thank you, Monk, and very nice. Thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure.
Okay.
To whomever listened to this interview, sorry for my English.
Well, I'll say again, we are I'm jealous of the fact that you can speak in two languages, and more of us should be able to do that. So there you go.
Yeah. All right, man. So
Okay.
take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.